guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Tresha with another DIY project, how to design your own throw pillow. And this is the final look here. And so if this is something you're interested in doing, just keep watching. For this project, you will need the following items: a ruler, felt, tape, scissors, cardstock, pencil or tailor's chalk, pens, fabric glue, fabric of your choice, and of course a sewing machine. So we start out with the project with an old throw pillow, and this came with my couch, so this is something I wanted to change. So first we start out with a piece of felt, and I had some noodle soup here. It was the container was the box was square, so I just cut it out and traced it with cardstock here. So you don't have to trace it out. You can use the actual shape of the product that you're using and just cut it out there, or you can use the cardstock. I prefer the cardstock here. And if you wanted to do a round shape, you can also use a ramekin or glass to trace out your circles. So for this project, I'm going to cut out some squares. So I'm going to use my cardstock here and begin to cut along the edge. Now that I've cut out that, I still have some excess fabric that I could use to create another square, and that's the front side. So you want to keep it on the bottom side and just use the square that you just cut out as a template. So to save time, I'm going to add another piece of felt under it. So this will give me at least 3 pieces of, and I would just need to cut out one more after this. So now that we have squares, I have 4 here. We need to create smaller squares. And, folding all 4 of these is kind of bulky. So what we need to do is just only take 2 squares each to create our squares. So we're going to fold it over and have the bottom side facing. And then we're going to cut in about 2.5 inches to create a small square. So you just take your scissors, make sure it's lined up here so you can get the same shape for both squares. And now that that's cut out, it looks like this. And you can use this. This is kind of pretty interesting, but I want to make another square out of this particular piece. So now I want to create an inside piece, so I'm cutting in 1 inch. Inward, and I'm going to create the smaller square. See, now that we have 2 smaller squares and 2 large squares here. Isn't the pattern interesting? It almost looks like leather. So now I'm going to take the fabric that I want to use, which is like a faux leather alligator kind of print here. And I'm going to cut out 19 by 19 inches. And I use my ruler and a pencil to measure and to trace out. And then once I did that, I put the fabric face up, and then I started putting my squares onto the front of the fabric just to see what my design is going to be. So this will take a little bit of time, but this is what I wanted to come up with. It's kind of abstract here. So I wanted where the pillow, if it could be turned sideways or up, and it creates a different design. And you'll notice that it overlaps. So when you start sewing, you have to be just follow the line and make sure you don't just keep sewing where it's overlapping. You want to go under it or over it. Not really under it, but just stop and then start again. This is a little bit more intricate, and this is a different perspective here. So this is what it looks like once it's sewed down the inside and the outside of the square. So now if you're interested in doing the Greek key pattern, what I use is painter's tape here. Just use my felt. I forgot to turn it over, and on the back you probably have a UPC sticker, and you want to take that off before you get started. So what I want to do is just cut a couple of pieces of tape. Depending on the size, we're going to create a G, shape of a G. And I like the width of the painter's tape, so I'm using that to form my G. And this is just the process of doing it. It doesn't necessarily have to be perfect, but it needs to come close. So this is my G here, and what we're going to do is just cut around the perimeter of it, and we're going to use this G as a template. So begin to cut around the perimeter. And make sure you're using fabric scissors for this. It makes life much easier. And once you do that, that's what you'll have here, and that's the front of it. What you want to do is take the tape off. You don't need it anymore. And you're going to use the cutout G as your template for the other pieces. Make sure you take off the UPC sticker and put your template on there, and then begin to cut around. So this is the 4 pieces that I cut out, and I had to use 4 pieces of felt. And now I'm just designing it onto the front of my fabric. I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to style it. So I'm choosing to put the G's backwards, like so. I think that looks so cool. And making sure that I have at least 2 inches around the perimeter. That way you can see my work of art, and that I don't sew over it. So now you're going to go to the sewing machine and stitch around the perimeter, the inside, the outside. And what I did, if you don't have a sewing machine, you can also use OK to Wash It by Aleene. I wouldn't recommend it for a leather, but definitely for cotton. So this is the back side piece of fabric that I'm going to have for my pillow. And I cut an additional 7 inches here. So it's 19 by 28, I believe. And once I cut out my piece, I want to split it in half to create my envelope. And once I did that, I wanted to fold in at least 1 inch in to create this crease, and then I'm going to sew it down. And once you do that, you take those two halves and you lay it on top of your fabric like so, and it's going to overlap. And this is how you're going to get the pillow in. That's the opening for it. So this is how it will look. Put right sides face down. Or facing each other. And then you want to sew around the perimeter. So now that you've sewed around the perimeter, you want to make sure your corners are cut. This alleviates any excess fabric and have more of a pointed corner. So now that you've done that, you want to turn it inside out and work on those corners. Might take a little bit of time if you're using faux leather, but if you're using cloth, it should be a little bit simpler. So this is what it looks like, the front and the back. And you have your opening here. This is where you put your pillow. And now I'm starting to stuff it. You're going to have to really push it in. It's okay. It might seem tight at first, but it's gonna fit very snug, and it will look really good at the end. You just have to work on it. And make sure you have your corners filled in. And once you have that, then you are finished. This is the front side, and that's what it looks like. Hope you like this. I certainly did. I thought this was fantastic, and it's really inexpensive. Can't beat it. So thank you guys. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe below, and on Instagram at Designs by Tresha. What DIY project would you like to see next? Add your idea in the comment section below. See you next time.